hacksaw through the plaster of Paris. So if you go too far around, you get an undercut, and you can't actually get him out of the mould. And I remember hacksawing through the plaster to try and get his ankle out of the mould.
And there's Paul, sort of almost completely encased in plaster at this point. So if anyone wants to try this later, we're doing a masterclass in body casting. And there's Paul actually in the dressing rooms down at Shepperton with me super gluing him into the costume, which unfortunately, because of various holes through the latex, meant that I did actually super glue it to him, which we didn't notice until we were trying to rip it off him several hours later. In fact, because of the time scale on this particular job, Paul worked through the night finishing the paint job on the model. And we had two of these. We had the suit that he was wearing, and we had a foam version that could be blown up at the end. And Paul actually went to sleep on set in the costume. He was so tired, he just lay down in the corner and dropped off. And I can remember Craig coming in and kicking it and going, "This foam one's fantastic."
I have to say, I remember we used to do a lot of late nights on Red Dwarf. I don't think we've ever done so many late nights since. It was a lot of time when it's everything we were making. And I remember a lot of us did all-nighters or very late in the morning.
Yeah. Peter.
Well, this is setting up to film Nick's space station. And I think in the foreground is the very small Starbuck model that Mike Tucker made. Was it specifically for this shot?
Sadly stolen.
Yes, it disappeared at an exhibition or something. But the camera in the foreground is a 35mm Mitchell, and this is back in the days when we actually had the budget to shoot on 35mm. And the little Starbug is on 4 sets of wires, I think, and was moved in on a motion control rig, which is out of shot above, spiralling in towards the space station. Unfortunately, the video effect that was put over the Starbug kind of made it disappear altogether, so you weren't really wearing the final shot of what was going on. But that's one of the things that we're never really in control of on these kind of things. The background is a big sheet of black paper with holes in it, made with a big nail, and then backlit, that's the stars, and the strange nebula effect is done with a white spray can, which is then lit with coloured lamps. So all very simply also means that we can quickly change the background by changing the gels on the lamps. So it's cheap and cheerful.
Can you explain the ponytail?
I'm afraid I can't explain the ponytail. What's the date on the slate? I can't read it from here. Can you read that? It's probably 1990 or something.
Yeah, I have to say I think I had a ponytail exactly the same time, because that previous picture we had a ponytail.
It did,
space station, so.
From behind we were almost indistinguishable.
I often found that.
It was just one of those things, it was 1990, 17 years ago.
This is a picture of us down the bar at Shepperton. Obviously after the studio's finished, that's why we're all in such good spirits, the day's over. And many of the time we just end up there at the end of the day having a drink. Surprisingly.
This was a set of photos. It's a shame Robert's gone, because I'm not sure he's seen these, but just going through the body casting or the head casting process. It being a member of the effects crew, Paul was quite happy to lie on a bench in the sculpture room and be covered in plaster of Paris and cling film. When you actually have a principal artist, in this case Robert's girlfriend Judy, who was making the mask for the female Camille, they need to be treated with a little bit more respect than just wrapping them in cling film. So Judy here has been fitted with a bald cap to make sure that her hair doesn't get mussed up, and covered in a bin bag, as Peter's just pointed out. And then the next slide will show you. That is a substance called dental alginate, which any of you who've ever had casts taken of your teeth, it's the pink minty flavoured goo. We use exactly the same stuff, only gallons of it. The advantage of it is that it sets incredibly quickly, so that when you're doing these head casts, the actor or actress is kept in the setup for as short a time as possible. So by the time this is mixed to the time that it sets is about 3 minutes. You literally spoon it completely over the actor's head. You have one person whose job is purely to make sure their nostrils are kept clear. Now, some people completely freak out with it. Some people, Brian Blessed being one, are so comfortable and so relaxed they go to sleep. Unfortunately, what this does mean is that all you've got at this stage is a very loose, floppy cast of the person's head, so that then needs to be made rigid. So the next slide shows the plaster bandage, which that's put on in 2 halves. So what you eventually have is a plastic case, inside which is this alginate cast of the person's head, and it's amazing at capturing very, very fine detail. So it's a very quick and very accurate way of getting a head cast. So poor old Judy, she was in there for about 20 minutes, I suppose, all in all. This is James Davis, another long-serving member of the special effects crew, rigging the pyrotechnics into the second version of the Red Dwarf. The first one having met with an unfortunate accident involving a shelf and a forklift truck. And this is the version that I believe, Peter, you built, did you not?
Yes, I built the basic shape based on the original version, which I always hated when I filmed it for the first time. So I elongated it slightly, took a few liberties with the shape to try and make it a touch more aesthetic. I sprayed it in the basic colour, and then it went to the visual effects workshop for finishing off with the detailing and dirtying down. And when we blew it up, I'd made a collection of Guinness cans at home, which I cut up and crunched up and brought in a bin bag full of stuff for debris, which went inside it. So when it blew up, lots of bits of Guinness cans flew out, which hopefully no one recognised.
One of my favourite photos of all time, which was from Justice, and James, having made the simulant's knife, there were various versions of this. There was the prop version that had a solid blade. There was a retractable version for the stabbing scenes. And then there was a lightweight vacuum version that just was on a small wire harness that you could hide in your hair. And Rocky was absolutely astounded by this thing. It's sort of like, what? You used to have a knife in your head. You can see he's twisting his hands in torment. He does not know how that was done. Bless him. One of my favourite sets of Peter's famous motor wind sequences, whenever we've got sort of big pyro sequences going off, Peter does tend to bring out his motor wind camera and tends to be the best one at capturing this stuff. This is from High and Low, Starbug escaping from the exploding hangar of the Red Dwarf. So this was about the 3rd year running that the big Red Dwarf hangars had actually been set up. So they were getting into a fairly battered state anyway. So that's the basic setup. If we step through these, Al, that's the first set of pyros going off. And I can remember Peter wanting a huge bit of debris to come clattering in the foreground. So some poor bugger, who I can't quite remember who it was, is it Nick? Had to hold it and let it go when Peter said, okay, cue foreground debris. And the orange sort of emergency lighting is the 2 sort of police beacons you can see in the bottom of shot. And if you step it forward, that's the next set of pyros going off. And then the next one is poor Nick practically being engulfed, but still holding on to this foreground bit of debris. Yeah, wow, exactly.
Didn't harm the hair on your head, did it?